There's a doctor in New York making $390,000 a year. He drives a leased BMW. Her kids go to private school. She eats out most nights of the week. Her mortgage payment is $4,200 a month. On paper, she looks wealthy. In reality, she can't pull together $5,000 without selling something or taking on debt. This isn't a made-up example. According to a 2025 Goldman Sachs report, 41% of Americans earning between $300,000 and $500,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. For those earning above $500,000, that number is 40%. Let that sink in. 4 out of 10 people making $500,000 a year have no financial cushion whatsoever. These are people who earn more in a single month than many Americans make all year. Yet they carry the same money stress as someone earning a fraction of their salary. The common belief goes like this: earn enough and your financial problems solve themselves. Hit 6 figures and the anxiety disappears. Pass $200,000 and you're secure. Cross $500,000 and money stops being an issue. The data tells a completely different story. It's called the high-income poverty trap. People earn more, spend more, and their savings rate stays exactly the same. Then one day they wake up at 55 wondering where all that money went. The trap doesn't care how much you make. It only cares how much you actually keep. This isn't about judging anyone. It's about understanding a financial pattern that catches millions of high earners completely off guard because every single one of them assumed that a high income would automatically bring financial security. Research cited by multiple financial institutions in 2025 reveals something deeply counterintuitive. Americans earning $100,000 a year are more likely to report living paycheck to paycheck than those earning $50,000. In certain income brackets, earning more actually correlates with feeling more financially stressed. One study found that 48% of people earning $100,000 or more feel they are living paycheck to paycheck. Among those earning over $200,000, that figure is 36%. Bank of America's analysis, which defined paycheck to paycheck living as spending more than 95% of income on necessities, found that roughly 20% of households earning above $150,000 meet that definition. For context, approximately 24% of all American households fell into that same category in 2005. These are not people who failed math class. They are highly educated professionals in demanding, competitive careers. They understand compound interest. They can run retirement projections in their sleep. They know, intellectually, that they should be saving more. But knowing and doing are two entirely different things. The trap doesn't operate on arithmetic. It operates on psychology. When income rises, spending rises with it almost automatically. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it happens so gradually that most people never see it coming. The $15 lunch becomes a $25 lunch. The Honda becomes a BMW. The perfectly fine apartment becomes a house with a guest room that nobody ever uses. Each individual upgrade feels completely justified in the moment. You earned it. You can afford it. The numbers technically check out, but here's what's actually happening beneath the surface. The upgrades keep stacking while savings stay flat. And once a luxury becomes part of your normal routine, giving it up no longer feels like returning to where you were. It feels like falling behind. It feels like losing something. That psychological shift is precisely what makes the trap so difficult to escape, because by the time most people realize they're in it, their entire lifestyle has been built around an income they were never actually keeping. The research on actual millionaires paints a picture that looks nothing like the way most high earners choose to live. The classic study, The Millionaire Next Door, found that the majority of millionaires don't look wealthy at all. They live in ordinary neighborhoods, drive unremarkable cars, and rarely display any signs of their net worth. Research from Ramsey Solutions found that 94% of millionaires still live in middle-class or modest neighborhoods. A 2025 Empower study showed that more than 62% of everyday millionaires continue to budget, hunt for deals, and avoid extravagant lifestyles even after crossing the $1 million threshold. The typical millionaire has never spent more than $399 on a single piece of clothing. About 60% live in homes valued under $500,000. Warren Buffett still lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. This creates a striking paradox. The people who actually build wealth look nothing like the people who appear wealthy. The doctor in the leased BMW looks richer than the plumber driving a 10-year-old truck, but the plumber has $2 million in investments. The authors of the Millionaire next door introduced two useful categories. Pause prodigious accumulators of wealth and UALs under accumulators of wealth. A janitor earning $50,000 a year can be more of a paw than a doctor earning $700,000. The category is determined entirely by spending habits, not income level. Their formula is simple: multiply your age by your pre-tax annual household income, then divide by 10. That number is what your net worth should be. A 50-year-old earning $250,000 should have approximately $1.25 million. Anyone falling significantly below that threshold is an underaccumulator, someone spending their income rather than building with it. Most high earners fail this test by a wide margin. The 2025 Charles Schwab Modern Wealth Survey found that Americans believe they need $2.3 million to be considered wealthy and $839,000 just to feel financially comfortable. Meanwhile, the median net worth of American households sits at roughly $193,000. The gap between what people think they need and what they actually have is staggering. When you're earning $400,000, but your net worth is $300,000, you don't feel wealthy. You feel behind. The hedonic treadmill keeps spinning, and you keep running just to stay in place. In Schwab's survey, 63% of respondents said it takes more money to be considered wealthy today than it did just a year ago. The goalposts never stop moving. Someone reaches a net worth of $500,000 and discovers that comfortable now requires $839,000. They hit $1 million and find out that wealthy now means $2.3 million. No amount ever feels like enough because the definition of enough keeps changing. In 2025, households earning over $100,000 carried an average credit card balance of $12,760, according to multiple research sources. The top 20% of earners hold 35% of total US credit card debt. Despite representing a much smaller share of the population, this stops being a paradox once you understand how credit functions differently across income levels. Lower-income households use credit to survive their financing necessities because the money runs out before the month does. Higher-income households use credit to maintain their financing a lifestyle that technically fits their income but leaves absolutely no room for error. Both groups end up in the same place, owing money to someone else, with interest compounding against them, according to Federal Reserve data. Total US credit card debt reached $1.277 trillion in Q4 2025, the highest balance recorded since tracking began in 1999, and a 66% increase from the pandemic lows of early 2021. The fixed cost trap is especially dangerous for high-income households. When you're earning $50,000, your housing costs are naturally constrained by what lenders will approve. When you're earning $300,000, you qualify for mortgages that stretch your budget just as thin. They just involve much larger numbers. A family earning $80,000 might spend $2,000 a month on housing. A family earning $300,000 might spend $8,000. Both families are spending roughly the same percentage of their income on shelter. Both families feel equally constrained. The higher income family has more expensive problems, but the same fundamental lack of flexibility: private school tuition, multiple car payments, vacation home carrying costs, country club memberships. These aren't frivolous expenses in the traditional sense. They're lifestyle commitments that function exactly like fixed costs once they're in place. Pulling a child out of private school feels impossible. Selling the vacation home feels like failure. Downgrading the car feels like a public admission that things aren't going well. The trap tightens precisely because the lifestyle is so psychologically difficult to reverse. According to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the US personal savings rate stood at 3.6% in December 2025. Americans are saving roughly $3.6 out of every $100 of disposable income. At the pandemic peak in April 2020, that rate hit 33.8%. Stimulus checks arrived, spending opportunities vanished, and Americans accidentally discovered what aggressive saving actually felt like. That money is long gone now. This pattern holds across every income level, and that's the critical insight. Higher earners save slightly more in absolute dollars, but because their spending scales with their income, their savings rates often remain just as low. Someone earning $75,000 who saves 4% puts away $3,000 a year. Someone earning $300,000 who saves 4% puts away $12,000. The higher earner is saving 4 times as much in raw dollars, but relative to their income and lifestyle costs, both are equally vulnerable when something goes wrong. Compare that to how actual wealth builders behave. The Millionaire Next Door found that millionaires typically invest at least 15% of their annual income before covering living expenses. They treat saving as non-negotiable, not aspirational. The difference between 4% and 15% compounds into an enormous gap over time. Lifestyle creep has always existed. What's changed is visibility. Social media broadcasts everyone's vacations, renovations, and purchases in real time. The 2025 Goldman Sachs report explicitly named keeping up with the Joneses as a key driver of paycheck to paycheck living among high earners. Six-figure workers feel pressure to match their peers' spending. Even when the math simply doesn't support it, this creates a strange and damaging dynamic. People in the top 5% of earners feel financially inadequate because they're comparing themselves to the top 1% or to carefully curated social media versions of people who may actually be even more leveraged than they are. According to Empower data, food delivery spending rose 10.2% year over year, climbing from $162.4 to $179 per month. Streaming service spending grew 12.5%. Rideshare spending increased 7.9%. These are convenience categories. Each individual expense feels small. Coffee chains, delivery apps, subscription services, nobody notices the gradual accumulation. But $179 a month on food delivery is $2,148 a year. Add streaming services, rideshares, subscription boxes, and premium apps, and the total quietly grows into serious money that disappears without delivering any lasting value. The high-income version of this pattern involves larger numbers but identical psychology. First class instead of economy, hotels instead of Airbnb, restaurants instead of cooking at home. Each upgrade feels minor in isolation. Together, they build a lifestyle that requires the full income just to maintain. In Schwab's survey, San Francisco residents said you need $4.4 million to be considered wealthy. Southern California residents said $3.4 million. New Yorkers said $2.9 million. Living in high-cost cities inflates both expenses and expectations at the same time. A $300,000 income in Kansas City provides a dramatically different life than that same income in Manhattan or San Francisco. Someone earning $350,000 in New York can genuinely feel financially squeezed because housing costs, taxes, and baseline expenses consume a far larger portion of their income than they would for someone earning half as much in a lower-cost market. The research is consistent. 79% of millionaires are self-made, with no inheritance. Only 31% averaged $100,000 or more annually throughout their careers. Most built their wealth on modest incomes through disciplined, consistent behavior over long periods of time. 73% of millionaires never carried a credit card balance. They understood that compound interest either works for you or against you, and they made sure to stay on the right side of that equation. The average millionaire worked, saved, and invested for 28 years before crossing the $1 million threshold. Most didn't get there until around age 49. The path was slow and unglamorous, not dramatic or sudden. That timeline matters because it reveals the true cost of the high-income poverty trap. Someone earning $300,000 for 15 years while saving nothing has surrendered the most valuable compounding years of their financial life. Even if they start saving later, the time lost can never be recovered. Breaking the high-income poverty trap requires confronting a question most people spend their lives avoiding. What is all this spending actually for? The doctor earning $380,000 could choose to save $100,000 a year. Her income is more than sufficient. She simply spends enough to prevent it. Choosing differently means accepting that the BMW can be a Honda, that private school may not be necessary, that eating out every night serves convenience far more than nutrition, that the house with extra guest rooms mostly impresses people who don't matter. These sound like judgments. They're really just trade-offs made visible. Someone who genuinely values private education and fine dining should absolutely spend on those things, but consciously, with a clear understanding of the opportunity cost. Not automatically, because that's simply what people at their income level tend to do. The high-income poverty trap isn't about deprivation. It's about intention. Most people caught in it never consciously chose their spending patterns. They accumulated expenses gradually, each decision reasonable on its own, until their entire income was spoken for. Reversing the pattern means auditing every recurring expense and honestly asking, does this still deliver value proportional to what it costs? More often than not, the answer is no. Unused subscriptions, empty square footage, vehicles that rarely move, memberships that provide status rather than utility. The automation principle works at any income level. Saving whatever is left after spending doesn't work. Spending whatever is left after saving does. Someone earning $400,000 who automatically directs $120,000 a year into investments will build serious wealth regardless of how they spend the remaining $280,000. They'll still live well, just slightly less extravagantly than someone earning the same amount and saving nothing. The gap between those two people compounds dramatically over time. The math is straightforward. Earn $300,000 and save 30%, and you're setting aside $90,000 a year. At 7% average returns over 20 years, that grows to roughly $4 million. Earn $300,000 and save 5%, and you're setting aside $15,000 a year. Same returns, same timeline, roughly $650,000. The difference is $3.35 million. That is the 20-year cost of the high-income poverty trap. The trap persists because people optimize for the wrong variable. Optimizing for lifestyle means maximizing consumption today at the expense of flexibility tomorrow. Optimizing for wealth means accepting some constraint today in exchange for real options later. Neither approach is inherently wrong, but only one leads to the financial security that high earners assume their income automatically provides. Someone earning $200,000 with a 30% savings rate builds wealth faster than someone earning $400,000 with a 5% savings rate. The math isn't complicated. The behavior is. 77% of Americans don't feel financially comfortable regardless of what they earn. 40% of those making $500,000 live paycheck to paycheck. Total credit card debt has hit all-time highs while incomes remain near record levels. The evidence is overwhelming. Income alone doesn't solve financial problems. Only intentional decisions about how much of your income you actually keep rather than spend create the security that most high earners assume their salary should automatically provide. The trap is real. Escaping it is possible, but it starts with accepting that more money was never the answer. What you do with money always was.